This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 473, recorded on December 17th, 2020. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a Mike, we got snow like this weekend, and it's not going away. Like,
that's the weird part. It always goes away.
Christmas.
Like in Omaha, when you have your first snow, it's never cold enough, and then it just goes away. And then, usually January snow, February snow, that sticks around. But yeah, it's still on the ground. It started to melt a little bit today, but it's been nice. My kids love playing in the snow. We have a nice big snowman out in our front yard right now because they couldn't let that go without putting a snowman up.
Odds of a white Christmas here in the Omaha area? You got any odds? I think it's pretty slim.
I think it's pretty slim. I think it's supposed to warm up just enough this weekend that it'll melt, and I don't see any snow in the forecast next week.
Ryan, did you guys get any snow down there in Kansas?
Yeah, we did. We had some last weekend, which, lasted about 12 hours. And then we got some earlier this week, but it pretty much all melted off. So our chance for snow on Christmas, zero.
You're too far south. Bob, you're in the snowpocalypse, right? Is that what's going on right
it's we got about I would say like 8 to 10 inches yesterday, and I just walked the dog, and it's snowing pretty heavily, so probably another I don't know what we're supposed to get tonight, but yeah, I haven't moved my car since yesterday, and I don't plan on it. So
do you have to shovel? You own a house, you got to go shovel the sidewalks and stuff?
No, so I live in an apartment complex, so they take care of all the hard stuff.
Nice. Yeah. There's days I long to live in an apartment. You're like, no lawn mowing, no, grass care, no shoveling.
See, like now that I've been in, so we were in a townhouse, and then I just moved to this like small apartment before we make our big move. And I miss doing the yard work, and I miss doing all that stuff because it was like a break from like my actual work and other things.
The grass is always greener on the other side. You always end up missing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I say I like it, but I don't really like it. It's a distraction. You're right. It does get you out during the pandemic. During the summer, it was a nice distraction. Although, Mike, we had McCabe on, twice in person. And we talked all that lawn care stuff, and I spent all this time on my lawn, and my neighbor's lawn across from me, she did nothing. Looks great. Like it looks better than mine. Just like, what a slap in the face. I'm going to go pour gasoline or something on it because, it's like, hey, I put all this water on it and yours is greener than mine.
I feel like that's kind of like my home network. Like there'll be times where someone will be over and like, hey, your network's acting wonky. I'm like, oh, because I have a blocker that's blocking. Yeah, if you're trying to access a website from a certain country, it's like sometimes when you don't mess with it, it's just better than when we all try and make our stuff so fancy. Like my network, I just have way too much stuff going on. Sometimes it ends up being worse than the person who just has a TP-Link router in their house.
Yeah. We set all these things up, Bob, Ryan, you guys know this. You set up these complicated rigs, or Bob, in this case, we're going to talk a little bit about it. You got a new monitor, the tiny little thing. I mean, barely worth even talking about.
Yeah, it's a little.
49 inches worth. And you start setting things up, and you start having this cascade. Well, since I alluded to it, we'll just tease folks. We're going to talk about this gigantic monitor that Bob has later in the show, so it's coming up. But you start setting these things up, and then it has a cascading effect of problems, right? You're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, now I got to buy this. Oh, I don't have that. Oh, now I really want this, right? And pretty soon, right, Bob? Right?
Yeah. It's just you always want like to keep on upgrading, or you always want to, okay, I got this, now I need that, and it never ends. Like I look at my setup now, and you saw from the picture, like it looks awesome, but I'm like, I want 5 more things for my setup,
That looks pretty sweet. Like, I mean, that's a pretty sweet setup. Now, you're not keeping the light on. Oh, as we're seeing this, for those that are listening audio, Bob's got a 49-inch widescreen curved. We're going to get some specs on it here a little bit later. You don't try to work with all those fancy. The lights are really just for visual effect, right?
So I do say that, like, especially when I'm working at night, like having a light behind the monitor is really good. It's actually, like, at least from what I've heard, it's like a blue light or something like that is better for your eyes.
Okay.
But during the day, I really don't have the lights on like that. And the main reason I got the lights is when I shoot my YouTube videos, this would be like the background. And you got to have like something cool in the background there. So
well, good for you that you can use it also for the YouTube work, because you know they at least you got a purpose behind that. I mean, it looks great. We're gonna dig in to some details here in a second, but we tech guys and ladies have that problem where it just the problems begin to cascade. I've started recently doing another proof of capacity Bitcoin project with Ken, and it's all hard drive based. And so I started replotting files. Mike, you'll appreciate this. I started replotting files on hard drives and stuff. And I think, oh, I need to move that hard drive over here and get this. And just touching the hard drives, gone. Like, you know, they were working just fine. And then I would shut them down, unplug them, move them, plug them back in, you know, and then they'd stop working or whatever. And you're like, this thing is sat and spun for 2 years without a problem. The second I move it, it doesn't work anymore. I'm sure you guys, with all the work that you do with builds and stuff, you're putting it together, it doesn't work. You walk away and come back and it does, right, Bob? You're shaking your head.
Yeah,
That probably happens a lot.
There's so many tech things you're like, you get so upset. You're like, this makes absolutely no sense. Like, why doesn't this work? And then you like, I'll get frustrated. I'll be like, let me go for a walk or take the dog out. And then I come back and then I turn it on and it works. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that was like the last PC build I had. I don't know what it was. I took it apart several times and built it back again because I thought it was something, but there was a certain way, if I kind of touched the case, the whole thing would just shut down. Like it was just pressure on the case. Like I think it was shorting something somewhere, but I took it apart, rebuilt it 3 times. In that case, it would just always do it. And you know, the new computer build, I used some parts from that build and some new, so it hasn't done it since. So something in the new build of the new case didn't do it, but it's just like it's one of those frustrating problems that you just don't know why. Never will.
I've found lately is I have a problem and I'll work on it late, and then I'm just like, I gotta go to bed. You know, it's 2 a.m. So you come back the next evening, and in the first 5 minutes, you got to figure it out. Like, you're like, oh yeah, it was that thing, and then it's fixed, and you're fine. But you spent 4 hours and you lost sleep. I think sometimes we just need to learn to quit. Well, I didn't introduce them. Let me do that now. Both Bob and Ryan are back from thinkcomputers.org. If you haven't followed that site, if you haven't followed their podcast, head out right now. Go to thinkcomputers.org. Do you guys still have that contest going on? If they do,
we
just ended earlier in the week, I think.
Earlier this week. We will have another one soon. I'm working with a couple companies to get some
nice
prizes going. So.
That was slick. The sign up, like, okay, I remember the old days, and it'd be like, okay, tweet this and Discord that and these kinds of things. And it was a nightmare to track it. But the site, whatever software you're using to track these,
it's called Gleam. A ton of people use it. And it allows you to integrate, and it allows you to integrate social media. It integrates our newsletter. It integrates Twitch and a bunch of other websites. So when people complete those tasks, they get an entry into the contest.
Yeah. And then it's just a random pick. Because that was always that's what always sucked about giving things away, was the administrative part of counting.
Yeah, I used to way back in the day, I used to print them all out, cut them, and put them in a hat, and then I would record it with like an old, I don't know if you remember those like little flip cams. I recorded on a flip cam of me picking it out, so people didn't think it was like like they knew who the winner was. So
no, I apparently I have not, because I stopped entering those kinds of contests a while ago. I'm like, I don't need more stuff, and I don't need more spam and some of those kinds of things. So I think 2 weeks ago, I heard you guys promoting, and I'm like, okay, I need to go out and do all this stuff because it's the right thing to do. So I pop out there expecting expecting the old way. And like, I signed in and I signed up for the newsletter, and then it was like, okay, here's your scoreboard, and then do these things. And they dynamically updated as I was doing them. Great for engagement, right? In the sense that it kept me engaged, knowing exactly, and I was getting points for it. So that was good. And then I assume easy for you guys too. Does it just pick it for you too? You just
so it has a whole, Gleam has like a whole back end where you can go in and you can see everybody that registered. You can some of our contests are based on like location. So we can see where the person's located at, and you can double check if somebody like, so say like for our contest, you have to subscribe to our newsletter. I can actively like in Gleam see if they're subscribed or not, because a lot of people will subscribe and the next day they'll unsubscribe and it will still count it.
Right.
So you can do all that kind of cool stuff. And then, yeah, you just hit like pick winner and then it just randomizes and picks. And
yeah. No, it's a great way to do it. Okay. So you have a contest coming up, thinkcomputers.org. Make sure you at least sign up for and I think it's weekly, right? You guys send out a weekly newsletter. Is that correct?
We send out anytime we post a new review.
Okay.
Or like our podcast or anything like content besides news, it goes out. So it's like, I would say like 2 to 4 emails a week would go out on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But to keep you up to date on what's going on over there, they got great reviews, great hardware. From an audience perspective, if you like this show, you'll really like that show and you'll like the posts over there. So we've had them on a bunch. Thinkcomputers.org. You want to head over there and get that done. I will say, I'll remind you too, as well. We continue to partner with Hover. Head out to theaverageguy.tv/hover for your first domain. Get $2 off. We make $2 as well. Great way to support home gadget geeks. Just use theaverageguy.tv/hover. And then I was just chatting with Christian, and then he's got plenty of space for you over at Maple Grove Partners. So if you want to pair that with hosting, get high-speed, reliable hosting from people that you know and you trust. And Christian was just on a couple weeks ago. So maplegrovepartners.com. A little housekeeping before we kick in here. The next 2 weeks, so we're recording, it's December 17th. Next week is December 24th. The week after that is December 31st. Mike told me he would quit if I didn't give him 2 weeks off with pay. So Mike, 2 weeks off with pay.
Oh, good.
All right. There. Okay. It's good.
The beer's still going to come.
Yeah. The beer will still be there.
My beer allowance.
Let's just be really clear. Maybe even a cigar. So next 2 weeks live or off. It'll be nice to take some time off. And are you're guys taking next week off or no? Will you be on next week?
I think we'll be on. Actually, we'll probably be on both because they're on Wednesdays.
Okay.
It's
a perfect time for folks. So if you're missing Home Gadget Geeks, make your way over to thinkcomputers.org and get in on the podcast over there. And well, I'll say thanks for doing that. And then come back and then just listen to both when you come back.
It's like you have one for Wednesday night and then you have one for Thursday night. It's perfect.
Yeah, no, it's good. And you guys do some gaming at the end of yours, right? You do the podcast and then go over to Twitch.
Yeah, go right over to Twitch about 5 to 10 minutes after our podcast ends. Then we'll game there for 2 to 3 hours every Wednesday night.
Jim, we got you on the Xbox train. You and I could do that too. I'd be totally down to switch over.
You got the Twitch channel now.
Yeah, right. You have Twitch already up. There you go. Let's just do it.
I know we're on Twitch. You're never gonna see me gaming.
I know.
That is just never gonna happen. Not that I'm anti it. I just am not. That's just not my gig.
It's not your gig.
That's just not my gig. No, I'd rather plot hard drives for Bitcoin currency. Okay, let's dig in. I really wanted you guys on to talk a little bit about and I have a name for it I can't really say on the podcast, but it starts with an S and it ends with show that's going on right now around CPU and GPU sales. I haven't really dug into it, so I'm kind of glad you guys are here because I know you live in this space. Bob, let me throw it over to you. If you were to kind of give me a quick, I came in from another planet and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go buy a CPU. You would tell me, well, first of all, there's none available, but give me a kind of a current state. What's going on in this weird world? There we go, of GPU and CPU purchasing.
Yeah, so I think the bigger one is GPU, but I'll touch on CPU first. AMD just released their 5000 series of processors, which is a huge leap for AMD from the 3000 series, especially in single core performance. It's kind of where Intel had beat them in the previous generation. I've reviewed pretty much all of the 5000 series minus one processor, but that review will come out next week. But they're great, and that's the process that series of processors. They have all the way from a 6 core all the way up to a 16 core. So I could, depending on your price point, I could point to any of those processors. But the sad thing is that you can't find them anywhere. You can't buy them. They're sold out. I know people that had bought them, but their delivery date's not till the middle of January. And on the GPU side, it's sort of the same thing. So Nvidia just released their 30 series or 3000 series of graphics cards, RTX 3070, 3080, 3090. And they just released the 3060 Ti as well. So again, a bunch of different price points, incredible performance from the previous generation, and a considerable price drop as well. So you're going to get a card for like $600 that was, you know, 1,000 in the previous generation, the same amount of performance. So everybody wants these cards, but on the GPU side, you can't buy anything. Like nothing's in stock anywhere, whether it's a physical store, whether it's an online store. The only place that you can get these new GPUs is eBay, and people are selling them for 3 to 4 to 5 times as much as the retail price, which obviously you don't want to pay.
Right.
And then on the even worse side of that, the 20 series, which has been out for what, 2 years, Ryan?
Oh, at least.
Yeah, the 20 series, those are even hard to find, and people are selling those for more than what they should be sold for as well. And of course, if you're building a new PC, you don't want the older series because just the value is not there anymore. But that's all that's available, which is really sad.
Well, the value's not there, but the value is there because people are right.
Yeah,
paying the price for some of these things.
The weird part is on the GPU though. I mean, those came out a while. When I say a while ago, right? Like, wasn't like 2 months ago, 2-3 months ago?
I looked this up ahead of time. So September 17th is when the 30 series launched, right?
And they still haven't fixed their supply issues. Is this on purpose?
3 months in.
I wouldn't say it's on purpose. I would say that one, with the whole, I guess I'll say COVID situation, even though you're probably going to get flagged on YouTube now because that's that word.
That's all right.
But yeah, because of that whole situation, maybe they weren't able to produce as much, or they just didn't know the demand would be so high because the demand is crazy.
Yeah.
And when it comes to making GPUs, like whatever order they put into TSMC, who makes the actual physical GPU, that process for that order is like months. So they put an initial order of say like 1 million GPUs or whatever it is. Until the next order, you know, it's a 2-month wait until that supply, you know, that supply would go down. So maybe they underestimated. Also, with everything else that goes on the GPU, there's all those supply constraints as well. That's what, at least in my opinion, that's what I think is kind of going on. Either it's a mix of COVID and just the demand for these parts.
And do you think that go ahead, Jim.
No, go ahead, Mike.
Do you think the demand is high? Because when I was thinking about this, because like I had a 1060 graphics card. I went up to a 1660, which was, you know, looking back now that I know what came out, not the best purchase. But I think a lot of people were pretty happy with the 1000 series cards. And so when the 20 series cards came out, it was kind of that first gen ray tracing. I think people were like, well, we'll give it one more generation for that to get a little better. Price may come down. So you probably have a huge influx of, first of all, the people who are on the 1000 series cards that want to now upgrade to ray tracing. But then with the price decline, you probably have enticed a lot of even the 2000 series card people to like, hey, you know, if I could upgrade, and then if I could take advantage of selling this card, if people still want, you know, my card, it probably just like, you know, the demand kind of seems like it would be there from all sides.
So before the 3000 series launch, we saw like a 2080 Ti, which was what was that, $1,200, Ryan?
$1,200, yeah, is what
$1,200 card. Before the 3000 series launch, people were like, I'm selling my 2000 series. So we saw like the highest end card, which was 2080 Ti, $1,200 card. I think the lowest it went on eBay was maybe $400 or something. So like people were trying to get rid of these like crazy to get the new card, and then the new card came out, and then it just messed up everything because there weren't any available. And then somebody got that card for $400 that they could resell it for basically $1,200 again because there's no cards available.
There's no supply. Wow. Yeah. And that poor guy is stuck without a card, probably the one that originally sold it, hasn't been able to get it, and wow.
Yeah, but you're completely correct. Like first gen ray tracing, it was, I wouldn't say was a big failure for Nvidia, but not enough games supported it initially. The actual raw performance of a 2080 Ti versus a 1080 Ti wasn't the best. Like it's not a huge leap as far as raw performance, whereas the 3000 series, like it's a massive leap. Especially over the 1 or 10 series or 1000 series. But even over the 20 series, it's a big leap in performance, and the prices are dramatically lower. So everybody wants it. And again, I think COVID has a lot to do with that too, because so many people right now are just at home, and they're like, well, if I have to work from home, I'm going to buy I'm going to build myself a nice new PC so I can game as well. Or, a company might be like, here's, you have this X amount of money to build yourself a PC to work from home. There's all that stuff going on. So it's a mess.
Yeah, maybe I should go back to my 1060 and sell the 1660. Tajowski just said there's a market for that 1660, but hey, join the game. Players got to play, right?
Right. Yeah, it's a mess, and I feel so bad because, again, like we've talked about it on our podcast, so many of my friends, not even big PC people, but they know I'm the PC guy. They're like, I'm building a new PC. I have $1,500, like, and I want to be like, AMD 5000 series, a new 3000 series graphics card. But I'm like, just wait. You have to wait a couple months because there's no point. And I don't want you to build something now that's last gen, or because you're not, because like I would feel so bad because it's just older hardware that's not as good, but you're going to pay full price for it. Now it's just,
or you can get like the CPU or like get the motherboard, but now you've waited for the CPU, and now the next iteration coming out in 4 months, right? And you're like, well, I didn't even get to use that, and it's you just waste money.
On that 5000 series CPU you mentioned, is that the same socket as the 3000 series CPUs? They stuck with the same. Wow.
Yeah, so it will slot right into X570 or B550 motherboard, no problem. And
an X570. Now I need a better CPU. Dang it.
Yeah.
All right, I might have some new parts. Well, I can't order it. See, this is great. I'm glad it's out of stock, because otherwise this show I would be spending a lot of money.
This is dangerous for Mike. When we start,
it's very dangerous.
Yeah. He has things ordered usually by the time we're done. Bob, you
done also have things sold by the time we're done.
Well, bought and sold. Let's just
right.
Really clear. And used, and you wrote a blog post about it. And it's like, I was like, man, he was quiet. Bob, I think you posted an article on your site about some Nvidia cards being stolen as well. Have we had some thievery in the process?
Let me find it on the site real quick before you.
There've been a lot of issues, the one that we'll talk about here, but just all sorts of shenanigans related to these GPUs. It's really sad, from theft to just the extent of the bots buying up all the inventory from Nvidia, and the lengths they're having to go to try and get these cards into the hands of legitimate purchasers. So it's really
well,
sad.
the bots. Well, Bob, while you're finding that, take your time. The bots seem to be, and this is like this sales cycle, starting with the Xbox and the PS5. I've never heard so many people, and I think I even heard Joe maybe on Twitter say that more and more people are using bots to purchase these things. Is that also becoming a problem? I mean, yeah, we have theft. Bob, talk about this article a little bit that you posted there.
Yeah, so $336,500 worth of MSI RTX 3090 graphics cards were stolen. So I guess you would say, like, back in the day, I think Ryan talked about this on our podcast, like people would steal like DVD players out of off a truck or whatever. And this is kind of like the same thing, but it's with graphics cards, which is crazy. But this happened over in China, outside of their factory, and they said that 40 containers with an estimated value of 2.2 million won, which is about $336,000, which would be 224 RTX 3090 graphics cards were stolen, and those are selling anywhere. It's a $1,400 card that's selling anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 on the black market or eBay, if you want to call it that.
That's quickly become the black market, right?
Yeah, but it's like you would hear these stories about TVs and other things, but you would never hear it about graphics cards. But the demand for them is so high that people are going to break the law to get a bunch of these and illegally sell them. Do
you think like crypto is at 2,100 or 2,000,
22?
Where
is 23
my
today?
brain tonight? Like, I am just struggling to say words. $22,000, right? For do you think there's any drive? GPU mining is out. Like, you just can't. I can't put these two together and say, yeah, one that
I think it's more the political climate. I would say for crypto. I have a bunch of crypto that I've had for years, which I'm very happy that it's very high. But yeah, I would say that's one of the big factors that it's going up. I would say.
I mean, I think just the lack, the sheer opportunity to make the money because it's such a hot commodity and limited resources, right? Like, hey, there's only so many of these. I can steal them and make a ton of money.
I haven't done a lot of work in knowing if these new graphics cards compete with ASICs at all, because those were, I mean, for the longest time, I still think an ASICs box would be still, X number of times faster than any GPU could do. I just thought we'd moved on from that, but
it was never. It got to the point where it wasn't profitable because your electricity bill would be too high.
Yeah.
So like I always used to this was like years ago, but like
I see.
there were places that you could like rent that were like electricity was included, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna like buy a bunch of GPUs and just have them mine all day. I mean, I'm not paying for electricity.
I guess at $22,000, coin, all of a sudden you start thinking, well, I mean, it's making now, that's 5, 6, 7 times what it was a year ago at this point. Maybe it does make financial sense. Maybe that is driving some.
I have to think about that because I do have a bunch. So typically AMD graphics cards are better, and I have a bunch that are right over here that are just sitting in boxes. So maybe I should
close.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I don't know. Mike, it caused me, Nice Hash, which we used early on.
I used that. Yeah.
They had that hack back in 2018, and a bunch of people lost a lot. I didn't have a lot, so I lost some. They've been repaying that back, and I bet they wish they had paid it all back before it got expensive to pay it back, because they're paying. The final payment was yesterday. What is today? The 17th. Yeah, the final payment was yesterday for everybody. So, by the way, if you are in Nice Hash at all, you might want to go, and maybe you forgot about it. You might want to go log back.
I might have to check that out.
You might have a few dollars.
Any of that stuff. Yeah.
You might have a few dollars.
I used to always like, as soon as I hit a certain amount on Nice Hash, I'd always transfer it.
Yeah.
Like transfer it out.
Remember the good old days when that wasn't a taxable event?
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder, okay, I don't know. Before I was going to poo-poo the whole Bitcoin thing. I was going to make fun of it. But now that I started doing the financials on it, you're like, okay, maybe that's part of it. I think the PC build, you guys mentioned this just a second ago. The PC build thing too, I think is a big deal. I think a lot of people are building right now. Mike, don't you think?
A lot of people are building it, and like I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of people are upgrading, right? Because I think a lot of people skipped that 2000 series card to get like I did, right? I mean, I went with the 1660 just so I can get the Turing architecture and have a little bit better. Back when I was streaming, it did better. Now I'm gonna. Guys, when you do the encoding on your GPU for streaming, I can never remember what that's called now. NVENC or something like that. Instead of CPU hardware transcoding, I use the NVENC encoder. And it's a little bit better with the Turing architecture on the 1660, because the 1660 had the 2000 series Turing. It just didn't have ray tracing. So I think a lot of people are just upgrading, and I know, but like you said, for some reason, even non-tech people that I know are really kind of getting into this building thing. My brother-in-law is a perfect example. He just built his first PC this year, and he's like addicted to it. He convinced my father-in-law that his mom needed a new computer, and he's like, just let me build it. Just give me the budget. Let me go build it. And he had a blast with it. So we're giving her that this weekend. He's super excited. He built a sweet little computer for her, customized, because she's a photo editor. She's not a gamer, so she didn't need big graphics card. She needed more beefy CPU, and he did all the research. And I mean, it's a thing now, and especially with like people like Think Computers and YouTube, like there's just so much available information. I think a lot of people are switching, and gaming. We were in this phase right before the new Xbox and PlayStation came out, where PC was just killing the game as far as like, if you wanted the game to look good, like I have gone back and forth between my Xbox One and my PC, and it is just like, I can't believe I played on the Xbox for so long. Now the new generation consoles are out, so that might not be as much of a motivation before, but man, for the time leading up to that, where the consoles were really lagging, people were kind of starting to switch over to PC Master Race and check it out. So I think it's kind of like the perfect storm everything leading up to these all being sold out. You know, you add in the human virus and everything like that, and it was just crazy. I didn't expect it to last this long, though. That was my big thing. Like, Ryan, you said September was when these things came out. I thought they would have had the supply chain fixed by now, but apparently not.
There's rumors that it will be fixed in like end of February, but I don't.
That's still a long time away.
Is there anything on the AMD side as far as GPUs? I know that they were making some announcements too, right?
They announced their
same problem there.
Yeah.
Really?
And same problem. So they announced 6800, 6800 XT, and 6900 XT, all which do compete with Nvidia's products
pretty well.
I haven't got them into test, so I don't know, like personally. But from what I've seen, they're pretty competitive.
It is dramatic as like Ryzen versus Intel, where like Ryzen all of a sudden was just like if you were building a PC, you were going Ryzen.
At least from what I've seen, it's not that dramatic, but it's good. It gives you a viable option if you're like an AMD guy, or you can't get a 20 series, but at the same time, you can't get this new 6000 series of GPUs either.
Got it.
They're sold out everywhere as well. So it's kind of like
it's like 2 years ago when you go into Fry's and all the GPUs were cleaned off because that was a crypto thing, right? Yeah. And people were just dying, you know, like I can't get it. How much of it do you think too is that because there's nothing there, people want them more? You know, it's just kind of that scarcity, you know.
We had a couple stories about that, like crypto miners are buying the new Nvidia cards. I forget how many millions of dollars. Like an analyst said that like crypto, the new 3000 series is being used for crypto. So
it's, you know, crypto grew quietly. It's like 2 years ago at its peak. So December 2018 at its peak, 21,000. And then it just plummets, you know, in January, it kind of just falls off the cliff, and I think it bottoms out around 3,000, right? And this climb has just been a steady. I mean, I've kind of stayed with it. We've been talking about it a little bit, but it's pretty quiet. Like you don't hear. 2 years ago, I mainstream press was writing about it. I don't see anybody like it when it peaked again. I haven't seen anybody write about it, to be honest. Mike, have you seen?
I'm seeing different styles of articles. So I think it's the space I'm in. I think because I see about a lot on LinkedIn. Obviously, I'm in the financial advisory space, and institutional investors and institutional platforms bringing crypto to financial advisors to be able to allow their clients to now have Bitcoin as part of a blended portfolio is becoming really big, and actually like. I don't want to say easy to do, but these institutional people who are offering it are making it easy for advisors to do it. And so I've been seeing those kind of articles, which Jim, you and I talked back when we were going through the mining thing. We're like, we're going to see a shift where we start to talk about the usefulness of this stuff rather than mining and all that. And we're still in the context of it being an investment instead of being a good vehicle for moving money around. But I think that's just the next phase. I think we're getting the investors in as far as the average investor, not having to have a Coinbase account, but they can do it through their financial advisor and just know that that's part of their portfolio and they benefit from a rise in the crypto market. But man, I tell you, I mean, I predicted wrong. It was because it's really been the last month that it shot up because, I sold back in November. I thought it was going to dip a little bit. And I was like, well, and we had some house expenses we needed to do. And it's like, well, I won't pull that. I won't pull from savings, dude. I'll just sell some crypto because I think it's going to go down. Well, man, was I wrong, because it has more than doubled since in November when I sold. I was like, well, played that one wrong. So I still haven't decided when to jump back in because it's just been on an upward climb.
Yeah, it's tough. It's I always say after the new year, it's going to go down. That's my prediction. So I have I just have like crypto that I just keep. It's just like it will never move at all. And then I have like, I have some that I just play with that, I sell and I buy and I sell and, and then I have an account where like some of our ads on our site, people pay us with crypto. So like, that's just like, I've had stuff in there for like years. So it's just like that money has just gone up, which is nice.
It's fun to see.
Ryan, do you have any?
Just a small little bit. Like I just always go back to the thought in my head, talking to my boss at work, going, overnight, did you Bitcoin went from $25 to $50. And I remember talking to him. I was like, I was almost about to buy one last night and buy some. And, and I was like, oh, I'm a $50. Like, nah, I don't, man.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
makes me sick.
You got to buy it at that worst possible, when everything in your body says don't, that's when you have to do it. Like that's
I got
the
on the
right
first
time.
point. It's worth 0.002 cents, I think. So,
Yeah. Well, I think PayPal is accepting, or you can now buy Bitcoin through PayPal. I think that was just announced like in the last couple weeks that they just turned that on. So, yeah, I'm not saying that's fueling it. It's just kind of these all, these all come together in a really unique time. It's Christmas time. We're smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. We had the Xbox and the PS5. Did I get that right? It's PS5, right?
Mm-hmm.
PS5 launch going on. Then we have these, the new build. Is memory having a similar problem, or is that pretty memory and hard drives? So now's the time to buy memory and hard drives, right? Is that right?
There were so many good deals that on Black Friday.
There was talks though. What was the factory that had an hour of
the Micron factory?
Yeah, the Micron factory just a week or two ago had an hour of a power outage, and they were saying how much it's going to affect prices. In the
for an hour.
Yeah. So, they have things so tight on the line, right?
Yeah.
They've perfected it. I say perfected because an hour goes down and you're having this many issues, but
I'm sure there's
great time
things
to
that
buy.
shut down, right? And then they got to fire back up.
Yeah.
So, okay, but last time you guys were on, we talked about SSDs and M.2s, and so with that market not being in the limelight, there's no shortages there. If I was going to upgrade hardware, would now be the time? Should I be buying more memory space? I think I saw an M.2 2 terabyte drive at a pretty reasonable price, right?
Yeah, I mean the prices are really good. Like I said, Black Friday was like a perfect time to buy because there were so many M.2 SSDs, which is like an incredible. People don't realize, they're like, oh, it's just like this little thing, but the amount of performance, even from like a traditional SSD. So like a traditional SSD maxes out about 550 megabytes a second. And if you move up to like an NVMe M.2 SSD, you're looking at 3,500 megabytes a second on max speed. So that amount of upgrade, I would say it's almost like going from a traditional hard drive to an SSD. Now you're going from that 2.5-inch SSD to an M.2. It's like the same type of upgrade. You'll instantly notice the difference. Windows is going to load faster if it's your OS drive. If it's your game drive, games are going to load so much faster. It's the upgrade that I think everybody should do. And prices are good right now. I think they're good, minus what happened at the Micron factory. I think that prices will continue to go down and the capacities will continue to go up. We've seen a couple people offer 8 terabyte. I don't think anybody's up to 16. Is there?
I don't think so. I know Sabrent was going to have their 8 terabyte NVMe drive available
now.
and I think they were working on a 16 terabyte 2.5-inch drive.
I'm so excited for my mother-in-law to get her computer this weekend because she's going from a 2010 iMac with a spinner as the OS to now an NVMe SSD and a Ryzen. He didn't go 5 series. He went.
She has like not waiting on the computer to turn on and do things, right?
Well, I didn't know how bad it had gotten. I went down there. She's like, "Hey, can you do your traditional monthly cleanup whenever you come down here next?" And I was like, "Does it normally take 3 minutes to launch Chrome?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." And she goes, "I usually do that, and I'll go make my tea, and then I'll come back, and sometimes it'll be up and ready for me to go." I was like, "Okay," and she's gonna be extremely excited. I'm like, I don't even know how. That's bad. And then she fully edits photos on this thing. I'm like, I don't even know how you do that. So we'll see. It'll be fun.
It's a sweet spot, a 2 terabyte, 1 terabyte. If I was, and Bob, you got this cool little adapter. I saw this. I checked in on the show, and you got this cool little adapter. Maybe you can bring that up on screen here in a second. But if I were going to jump in on this, where's the right entry point right now?
I would say 1 terabyte is pretty much the sweet spot. The price makes most sense at 1 terabyte If you do jump to 2 terabyte, things get a little bit more expensive. But they're like I would say 1 terabyte. There's a lot of good drives out there. Um, there's actually a ton of good drives. Like they're all pretty much the same type of part per se. A lot of them use the same parts. Just do your research, I would say. But if you're on an older computer, there's something like this, which is a little adapter. So a lot of older PCs, which a lot of your viewers might have, don't have the M.2 slot that's required for these super fast drives. But this goes in the same slot as your graphics card. So you have your graphics card in one slot, and then you have this little guy, and your motherboard has 2 or 3 graphics card slots. This is where this goes in. And if you switch over to my screen, I can show you kind of what's on the what it basically is. It's an M.2 slot, or M.2, yeah, M.2 slot that's on a riser, and it gives you the same amount of speed as normally plugging it in. So this is like, I think this, how much was this, Ryan? $14.99? $17.99. It's like $17.99. And then you buy an M.2, and then on any system you can have any within the past, I would say, 10 years, PCI Express 3.0, Ryan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You would have a super fast either OS drive or game drive or whatever it may be. And on top of that, if you do have a new motherboard that has M.2 slots and you have those full, this allows you to add an extra M.2. Is kind of what I did on my main PC. Is I have all M.2 storage, and I use a couple of these to give me even more space on there. So I can show you how it just goes right in. Like this is like a graphics card slot, and it just goes right in there.
Which
it has
at that price point for that card, and for the price point that you were just talking about NVMe, like why not? I didn't even think about going all NVMe, to even taking out some of my standard SSDs and the one spinner I have for games that I don't play anymore.
Yeah, so I think like a Sabrent 1 terabyte NVMe SSD, which is really, really good. We reviewed it. I think it's called their Rocket Q, I believe it is. I think it's like 120 or 120, 130 for a 1 terabyte, plus the $17 for this. It's a no-brainer, honestly.
Do you have it, Ryan? You got it right there?
Yeah, so I was up here. So he had the 2 terabyte version of the Rocket Q here.
Yeah. If you click on that link, Ryan, that's right there, it should bring you to the 1 terabyte, which is how much is the 1 terabyte?
Yeah, 109.98. So
yeah, 109 plus an extra 17 for this. It's like, it makes complete sense.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. That's one of those price points. You're like, okay, for $115, or $120, I'm gotta wait,
to a system that maybe wouldn't have had that as an option prior to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it as you guys were talking about it, I was like, oh, that could be handy in some spots. And
yeah, it's good because, again, a lot of people, M.2 SSDs only just became pretty popular the past couple of years, and a lot of people have older systems, but almost all of those older systems have an extra PCI Express slot, which this goes into, so it just makes sense.
Yeah.
I will say the one thing I didn't know when I was first starting to look at those, that for anyone who's new to this whole, like, if you're still running just a standard SSD, this is the first time, they do have, and Andrew brought this up in the chat, it's a good point to bring up, they have M.2 SATA, so you can get a SATA, which is going to be a lot slower. That's essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like the same speed as your standard SSD, just using the M.2 connector, right? So it's just the new profile, whereas M.2 NVMe is where you're going to see those speeds that Bob was talking about.
Yeah, so the difference, if you guys want to know, the difference between those two is that the NVMe or something like this is going across the PCI Express bus, which is, I don't know the actual speed, but it's fast. And then the M.2 SATA, or your normal your normal SATA SSD, is going across SATA connection, which is limited in its speed or bandwidth.
And then we didn't even talk about all the NVMe we've been talking about now in these PCI slots is version 3. There's a version 4 that's even faster, but right now limited to the newer AMD systems. So.
Yeah.
Well,
so like the fast, or go ahead.
No, go ahead, Bob.
The fastest, like if you have like that drive we just showed you on Amazon, that's Gen 3. that will work on pretty much with this adapter, work on a lot of older systems, and a lot of newer systems have a Gen 3 connector. Now, on new AMD systems, X570 and B550 have Gen 4, which I think the new drives that are just coming out max out at around 7,000 megabytes a second, which is very fast. So you're going from 3,500 to 7,000. But the initial ones that I've reviewed are around 5,000, but the newer ones that I haven't reviewed yet are around like 7,000. So
I think Andrew makes a good point in the chat. Make sure you're checking those PCIe slots to make sure they are what they say they are.
Yeah.
You know what they are.
Yeah. So for this to work, it has to be an X4. Yeah, it has to be an X4. So it won't work in an X1 slot. It has to be an X4. Most of the ones, most mainstream motherboards, all of the longer slots, like I showed you in the picture, all of those are X16 physical, but are typically X4 electrical. So if you would actually look at this from above, you could see the pins that are in the actual slot. As long as they're more than like this little end right here, you can see like the pins kind of go out to right here. It's kind of really hard to see in this picture, but that would mean this slot is X4, so it would support it. But most motherboards, all of the X16 slots, I've never seen an X16 slot that's X1 ever.
Right. Well, and usually that first slot on a modern motherboard is X16.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So if that's open, if you don't have a video card in there, because a lot of folks put video cards in there, you could probably move your video card down. Then put
you typically want your video card in the top slot. But again, if you're running like a normal ATX motherboard, you should have at least one more X16 slot, if not two.
I was looking at my X570 to see. I'm like, and I do have an extra 16 slot. I could get another.
Yeah.
I guess I have two M.2 slots on this slide. I mean, forgot about that. So I would fill that one up. I could have 3 though.
There I have 6.
I like it. You have 6 in that one compuder. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's goals. That's what I need.
It's pretty. I mean, it's just this is, we got, as I was talking about Bitcoin, about buying it when the whole world is telling you not to. That's the time to actually buy. We're in that spot with the hardware where there's so much focus on, GPU, CPU. This is the time. I mean, I bought an 8 terabyte spinner for $120, and you're like, well, okay, that's pretty cheap for where they had been. Yeah, a couple of years ago, they're 150. So it's not like they've come down to 99 or 49, but that's still pretty cheap. And so I think space, like if you're short on space right now is probably the time to start looking at. I mean, I can get a refurb 4 terabyte drive for $40, and you're like, okay.
Well,
I need to replace some of my NAS drives because the one's going bad. It's been going bad for a while, and I just haven't replaced it.
Yeah. Now would be the time, Bob. Now would be the time.
Yeah.
Mike?
Well, I was gonna say, I think the next jump, because I've been surprised actually that spinners are staying as expensive as they are. But I guess I have to remember that because I assume all data centers, they're not using anything 8 or below, probably less than 10. I don't know what they're using, but so I've been surprised that market of like 4 to 8 terabytes is still as high as it is, because I don't think a lot of people are doing home storage. This community is. We all are. Obviously, we have a NAS with some drives in it. I think that'll come down more as the SSD capacity expands up, right? Because if I could start replacing, just because I haven't wanted to replace my parity drive. I have 8 drives in my Unraid box, and they're all 4 terabytes or less because that's what my parity disk is. So I've always just bought 4 terabytes, and they're still pretty expensive. But man, if I could go like pure SSD in there, that'd be great. But I don't need to because it's just, it's cold storage essentially.
You have to remember too that like that physical hard drive is a big piece of hardware, and it has the what are the platters or whatever inside. So
True.
that drive itself costs far more to produce when like an NVMe drive is a PCB with like a couple chips on it. There's no moving parts. There's nothing like that. So that's another reason why you don't see those drives go down in price, because there is a cost associated with producing a bigger.
That's a really good point. You're right. It's probably way more expensive for them to do.
Yeah.
Andrew makes a good point. We've had a lot of conversation about this SMR drives, at about the 8 terabytes and above. A lot of the cheaper drives are SMR, which, if you're running in a RAID or an array or some of those kinds of things, can cause some issues in there. It depends on your data use and what kind of files you're putting in there and such. But I think now is the time to review your data, and to say, Bob, if you're in a spot with your NAS box and you're like, okay, maybe I need to expand that out a little bit. I think now is the time to kind of think through, what do I put in there and how much do I need? Because it's cheap, especially on the refurb or on the used market on eBay. I got some HGST. Is that the right? Did I get those letters in the right order? HGST drives that have been dynamite. Now, my son's cat just pulled the whole PC over, and I lost a couple drives as it smashed to the ground.
That's the biggest thing with those old drives is there's moving parts.
Yeah.
And with an SSD, you can throw it against the wall and it won't have those issues.
But for the longest time, you couldn't get that kind of space in solid state. And so now we're getting to that point where we're getting close. I think within a year or two, we're going to see 2 and 4 terabyte SSDs that, people are going to be like, why even go to a spinner? So that'll drive some of those prices down. So, Bob, I want to shift a little bit. We kind of let off with this, but I want to shift back to your monitor that you just purchased. And, typically I got, at work, they gave me a 34-inch ultra wide screen, Dell. It's beautiful. And I get kind of two. It's not really like having 2 screens. It's kind of like having 0.75 screens on each side, but it kind of works, right? It's a beautiful monitor. You tell us a little bit about what do you have in your desk now, and we'll bring up the picture.
So I didn't buy this. The company had sent it to me. I kind of proposed to them this idea of me reviewing it, and my whole thing was I sit in front of my computer and I'm working. I'm doing work, right? So the whole idea was moving. I had a 34-inch ultra wide as well, and I've always seen these 49s, and I always wanted one. And my whole thing was, what's the difference, productivity wise, going from a 34 to a 49? Because as you said, with a 34, you have 2 windows. That's how I used it. I would have work on one side and work on the other side, and that's how I would be productive, right? So with this is the Viotech SUW49DA, which is a 49-inch ultra wide. It's 1440p. So the resolution is 5120 wide by 1440 high, which is really nice. And it's 144 hertz as well. So when it comes to gaming, you're still getting, 144 hertz, which is really great for fast-paced games and things like that. And actually the monitor, the 34-inch that I was using previously, was only 100 hertz. So I literally set it up about a week ago. And as you can see, I have all my RGB lights and everything like that. But as far as the monitor itself, the way I'm using it now is I have it split the monitor into 3 sections. So I have a screen here, like a window here, window here, window here. And I'm using an
center, right?
Yeah. And I'm using an application called Display Fusion to do that, which is actually really cool because I was kind of lost when I got all this screen real estate. I was like, I don't know how to do this. And I want it to be, again, for productivity, I just want to be able to snap my windows, and with Windows snapping, it doesn't work like you would want it.
They don't have a center concept, do they? It's left and right only.
Yeah, it's left and right only. It didn't work. So I got this app called Display Fusion, which is it's free. It allows you to split your monitor however you see fit, which is pretty cool. So I have it set up like that. And I really like it. It was honestly very weird at first because I'm used to just sitting straight and looking straight into my monitor. And now I look like this, but I have so much more screen real estate, which is nice. And I got an RGB kit off of Amazon for the back of the monitor to do this cool look, as you can see. But yeah, I really like it so far. I haven't, it's been, like I said, it's been about a week, I would say, since I got it all set up.
It does take a little bit of getting used to. I joke in the command center, I've got 2 27-inch monitors and then a 24 over here. another 27 on this side. They're all separate. A couple of them are on different PCs using mouse without borders to get across them. And then on the end of the desk here is a 34. So I literally wrap. I don't know. It's not 360, but it's more than 180. Like, and I am kind of swiveling around all day. I imagine with a 49-inch monitor, it's kind of getting used to just all that real estate, right? Where you're putting things and where to look, right?
Yeah. So like my main center screen is like typically what I'm working on. Like if I'm writing an article, and then as I'm writing the article, I'll have like my pictures or whatever I'm referencing for the article over here. Over here, I'll have like email or something like that. Yeah, it's just getting used to kind of where the screens are and what's most comfortable. But yeah, I really like the monitor so far. It's nice. It's huge though. It's like it is really like wide. It's just big. So you definitely need a desk that has all that amount of space, I would say.
How did you mount it in the back? Does it have two mounts? Is it on a single mount? Is it heavy?
It's on a single stand. It's decently heavy. I was gonna get it. I'm a huge fan of monitor arms because I don't like there's a stand right here and it's just in the way, and I can lift it up with a monitor arm. But I'm moving in April, so I'm just gonna wait till that happens to get a monitor arm. But yeah, it's just on a single, like a normal monitor stand that came with it.
Retail is 900, and I actually expected like 15 for that size.
Yeah.
And so, Mike, when I say 900, and if you were thinking about getting an ultra bougie, as my kids would say, bougie widescreen, what do you think? $900?
I think that's a great price. Well, and because I was looking at monitors before, and my objectives have changed a lot. If I could ever decide and stick with one hobby, that would really help me pick out a monitor, because like when I was into Twitch streaming, it's really beneficial to have like your gaming monitor and then a separate monitor. And actually, even for me, I have 4, right? I had my Spotify up top. I had, Streamlabs doing the stream on one. And then I have my gaming and then chat on the other one. So like I was using all 4. And I don't Twitch stream anymore, so that's not a big idea. But I still game on the PC, so I love having my main monitor, and I'll usually watch football while I'm gaming. If there's something on, so I'll put on something. So Ryan, you touched on it with Display Fusion, but how does that work when it comes to gaming? Could you still game in the center and have real estate on the sides? How do games handle like full screen versus windowed? I'm curious how that all works.
Yeah. So basically, this Display Fusion. So I have it separated into 3 slices, you could say. It acts as if each slice is a separate monitor.
Okay.
So the game will see whatever that slice is. Now the slice with the 49-inch, the slices aren't like a traditional size.
Right.
So basically what I do is I just disable the slices so it's the full thing. And then I play with like a 1440p window in the middle, and then I'll have like our stream on the side or something else on the side. But what's really nice about this monitor as well, for like you have an Xbox, is that it does you can display 2 displays on this. So it has multiple inputs. So it has I think it has 3 HDMI inputs, or maybe 2 DisplayPort, 2 HDMI, I forget. But you can do multiple inputs, so you can have like you can have the your football game on one side, and then you can be doing your work or gaming on the other, or you can have PC gaming on one side and Xbox gaming on the other, right side by side.
Or could you even do two from your graphics card, just 2 different wires coming in and have it split that way? So then then the monitor is kind of handling that split. Let's say if you didn't want to run Display Fusion for whatever reason, you could run two wires, just like I am to my 4. Just run 2 in there and literally have 2 split screens. Then
you could do that.
Oh, I like that's built in though, because you're right. There are a lot of times with me that I have to, when I turn my Xbox on, I can't use the center one for the computer anymore. But yeah,
that's nice. This actually, I don't have it here, but the monitor actually came with a remote that allows you to switch and do all that stuff very easily.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I like that. It would all be about the Jim. I think you talked about too, is like the productivity. Is could I be as productive? Now, this isn't the area where I work, just because I have to use my work laptop for work, and I'm not going to switch around all the cords. So I actually just set up upstairs with 1 extra monitor on my laptop when I'm working from home. So this is more entertainment section for me, which kind of changes the use case a little bit, right? Because I'm not sitting here doing my Excel sheets and all of my presentations that I would usually do. So I think that could work actually pretty darn well for me down here. Now you got me thinking.
And
Well,
but the thing is, sorry, Jim, you can go.
Good.
So Biotech, it might not be a company that you've heard, but it's like one of these companies that it's like the monitor is like a no frills monitor. It doesn't have like a USB hub on it. It doesn't have any, but the actual glass that it's made out of, because all screens, it's Samsung glass. So it's the same type of glass you'll find in like a Samsung monitor, but without all the bells and whistles of, say, the Samsung monitor.
That's my style. For me, all three of these monitors are stuff I got from like a surplus business that was going out. I don't even know. I think they're 1080p. I do have one nice gaming monitor that I paid money for, but that would be great for me because all you really care about, is really the size. Number one, does it look good to the eye? It doesn't need to be amazing, but does it look good? Now, does that have HDR or not?
Technically, it does, but it's not. It's HDR 400, which I don't consider real HDR.
Got it. Yeah, right. I don't either. Okay.
It's definitely bright though. But again, it's HDR 400, so it's not like so. I would say like HDR starts at like HDR 1000, like 1000 its brightness. That's where you get that. But I think for me, like I'm a mix of gaming and productivity, probably more on the productivity side. But this is 144 hertz. That it can push that no problem. My graphics card obviously can push that no problem. So I can game at 1440p, 144 hertz, play like fast-paced games like Apex Legends. You know what I mean? And
right.
So
I think that's it, right? On Amazon as well.
Yeah,
so
that is it. There's the
sure.
remote and everything that comes with as well.
A good looking, and I could see with your stand. Like I would not like that stand on my desk.
I've like ever since I got a monitor arm like years ago, I just have never wanted a stand ever again. But
they're showing it in 2-screen mode here.
Yeah.
Did you try it? Because that really would be 2 widescreens as opposed to 3, like they're like 0.85.
Yeah, I've tried a bunch of different modes so far. For me, productivity wise, the 3 is the best. But yeah, I meant like when I first hooked it up, I was like, what am I doing with all this space?
It does take a little bit of getting used to, right?
Yeah.
When you look at that, you're like, wow. In it's actually wider than it looks on that picture.
Yeah, that one might give you, I don't know, maybe a better idea of it. But yeah, it's definitely super wide. I have like my desk is, I guess, the XL version of this desk, so it's a very big desk as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely want to make sure you have space per se on your desk for it.
Andrew said in chat, he's like, I don't have room for that.
Yeah.
Wide. Yeah. It'd be nice. You got me thinking about it. I probably won't, but because I already have all these monitors down here, and you're kind of like, do I really need to replace? Everything's working. This is the hard part about modern technology is stuff just is not breaking fast enough. Like I have old monitors. They're just fine. They work just great. And you're like, can I really justify, I've got hard drives that have lasted me 7, 8, 9 years, and you're trying to squeeze out every kind of, dollar that you paid for them out of them. And so the technology is just not breaking. Go ahead, Ryan.
It looked like Biotech has like a no dead pixel policy on that monitor as well. So even if, a lot of times companies would say, oh, we're not going to give you a new monitor until you have more than 1 pixel bad in a certain area of the screen or something. But with this, you got a pretty good guarantee at having a good screen there. And if not, getting it replaced, which is pretty nice. I've been happy with the Biotech that I've got here. I've got a 27-inch 1440p 144 hertz from them, and I love it.
And you don't have to have a gigantic monitor to use this display fusion, right? I mean, it's got some advanced features in there.
You can have any size monitor that'll work on it. Yeah.
Get it to split up your 24-inch monitor into different sides. And what's interesting, so with Windows Snap, you just basically snap and you're done. But it looks like they have different kinds of Windows management in there to allow you to configure them and split them and fade them. Fade them for productivity. So if you have one that you want to keep in focus, you can fade the others that are on.
This app is like incredibly in depth. There's so much you can do with it. I've only got to the part where I've split the screens, but there's a bunch of tutorials that I saw on YouTube that you can check out that allow you to do all that kind of stuff. You can make keyboard shortcuts that like will move different things. And say if I have like a gaming profile that has, you know, the 1440p in the middle, like and you can switch between those really easily. There's a lot you can do. A lot of that I have like the free version. But a lot of that has to do with like I think it's like $30 or something for the paid version, but
they do have a pro version.
Yeah.
Let's see if we get a price on this here really quick. It doesn't look very expensive. I'll have to look that up. I can't see. They have if again, I think it's just displayfusion.com if you want to go out and take a look at it. They're kind of standard. They have a free, a pro standard, a pro stream, a pro personal, a pro site, and a pro enterprise. So they what are they even taking lessons from Microsoft? I mean, come on. So they got some stuff to do. I think that's the real, you know, for a lot of folks, it's kind of like, well, I'm probably not going to upgrade my monitor, but it may be worth checking out Display Fusion if you're trying to do monitor management. And there just may be some things there. Bob, thanks for bringing it. I never heard of him before. I can't believe I've never heard of him.
Well, like I said, my whole thing was I got this, and then I was like, okay, how do I manage all this space? And I wanted to be able, like with my 34-inch, I would just snap the window over to one side or snap the window over the other. And I'm so used to doing that. I wanted to do that with this, but it wouldn't work with just within Windows. So there was like 3 different apps I went through, and the Display Fusion turned out to be the best one and the one that worked the best for me. And like I said, there's a ton of tutorials on YouTube on how to configure it and how to do all that. So it's worth checking out.
It's a good tip. I think that's a good tip. It's certainly in the circles we run in here. I've never heard of it before. So
I had never heard of any of the apps that I had used or installed, but it works. It works great. So yeah.
Cool. Ryan, let's wrap it with you. Last time we were on, you spent a bunch of time. We talked about cooling. And I used the word earlier, but you got kind of a bougie bilge of cooling out there. Why don't I show your screen and why don't you talk us through it a little bit?
Sure. So, like you said, we talked a lot about cooling last time we were on, and I think computers last, I don't know, 9 to 12 months, we've done a lot of reviews on these all-in-one coolers, kind of like I think Mike has one right now in his system from AlphaCool. We've looked at them from AlphaCool, Corsair, NZXT. All these companies make these just all-in-one enclosed cooling loops for your CPU. Then there's, a little step up, which is a full custom loop. And so I've got kind of the video paused here on my screen. I'll actually make this full screen here so we can see it a little better. So this is just kind of a side view of my custom loop. We worked with AlphaCool on this. They again, make these full all-in-one systems, as well as every single component that I've used here for the cooling system. So everything from radiators to CPU blocks, video card blocks, all the fittings, all the tubings, the reservoir, the pump to circulate, the fluid, the fans, everything related to the cooling of this build was an AlphaCool component. So we kind of worked with them. I hadn't done a custom loop in a computer in 10 plus years. So getting back into things, I was not nervous, but a little, anxious to start tearing, you think about tearing apart your RTX 2070 Super, right? Pulling the cooling off of it and exposing that PC board and making sure you're not damaging any components when you're doing that. And then just the thought of adding liquid into your case and your system that's not already in there from the factory. So we kind of go through, I'll back up a little bit here because that kind of shows the finished product, and then we'll show some of the glamour shots with it powered on. So yeah, we got a big box from AlphaCool. And of course the cat was checking it out, but I'm just sitting here pulling all these components out that came in this box that we got from them. And then I kind of go over every component that we used this build. So talk about each one of those components, and I give the part numbers down at the bottom of the screen and in the description. So if you were interested in any of them or had questions, just a quick and easy way to figure out what they are. So we just kind of look over all of these. One of the cool things is the GPU block and the video card are both enabled with ARGB lighting, so you can control that with a controller from AlphaCool, or if your motherboard supports the same kind of connector, you can utilize that as well. So we just kind of go through all of those components here, taking a look at, you know, the pump and connections. We've got the reservoir and everything here for your fluids, and then going through an ad here. We'll skip out of that while that goes.
Yeah.
We don't want to.
Is beer a viable cooling liquid?
I wouldn't recommend it. You could probably run it in there for a little while, and you'd be all
more
right.
like a beer tap, but then it would get warm. That's pretty. You probably wouldn't want that.
I think Jay's 2 cents actually tested that when he was doing Post Malone's build, because Post Malone, he themed with the Bud Light, and I think they said it was easily a no.
Yeah, you might get away with it for a little while, but so here, you know, I've got the video card out of the build that it was coming out of, and you know, we pull the back plate off, and you start taking apart the.
Do you show the full process here? Because I was actually really interested in that, as how easy or difficult that was to do.
I don't show every screw coming out, but I mean, really, it's just taking apart a bunch of screws, you know, pulling off this these plates here, cleaning the card.
That part scares me, right, Ryan? Right there, like that GPU is wafered together, and you just kind of pull it apart. I'd break it for sure.
You know, just take your time, follow the instructions. They provide great instructions, all the components that you need to be successful in this, right? They've got so many screws and fittings, everything like that.
And it looks so sick when it's done. It's so worth it. It looks amazing.
So it was fun. It's a lot of fun for the build. You know, and you've got these components that just kind of screw on. This is a soft tubing build, so we use one type of fitting there for the tubing and all those fittings.
That's all the thermal paste you're supposed to use. That's it. Just a little. Oh.
So yeah, you know, we've got a couple radiators. This one actually has 2 radiators in the build. I don't know if I showed that very well here, but whoops, let's swing back just a tiny bit.
I don't think I've ever seen your ears. It's weird to see it out there.
Yeah, without the big hands on. So we have a 240 millimeter radiator up front and a 360 in the bottom. So really, the loop kind of goes from this reservoir, and the pump is built into the reservoir, and the flow goes out of that into our first radiator along the bottom, circulates through, and then up into the video card. And now the flow of liquid actually splits between the video card and the CPU. So it's a parallel loop at that point. So the flow kind of splits and circles through both of those at the same time, and then back out into the rest of the series loop. So then into the front radiator, into the reservoir, back around. So this just kind of gives you a little different look. I think it's a little cleaner look when you run it in parallel, as opposed to just a series all the way around the case. But no, I think it turned out pretty well. You know, it's always kind of scary pumping fluid into your build for the first time, but yeah, there we go. Got some shots of the fluid going in, and then
pressure test you can do before you put the liquid in.
It's recommended. You know, you want to make sure all those fittings are tight with your fingers, and then you actually run the system with just the cooling components powered on. You don't actually fully power on the system. And I had a jumper for the power supply, so you just hook that up to the power supply, and it's not connected to your motherboard. None of the other components. You can see here, I don't have the video card connected right now, or the motherboard power, right? So none of those components are actually just the pump. So I cycle the water through, and you'll see a lot of times people having shop towels and stuff laid out because they're ready to fill it up and put a little bit of pressure into that tubing. Thankfully, I had 0 leaks in any of this process. So that I know of, yeah, right. I'm gonna skip out of Disney's ad real quick here again. But yeah, I've got a whole list of every component, you know, that we use, and affiliate links there if you're interested in taking a look at any of those. But then we kick it on for the first time, and we'll just let this kind of go as we're chatting. So no, it was a really good experience. Lots of fun. Love how it turned out. And I'm actually just about to tear it all apart and put it into a new case. Yeah. And we'll do a hard tubing build this time. So instead of the soft tubing, we're going to heat up some plastic and do a nice crisp look of hard tubing.
This already looks amazing though. Like, I think this is one of the cleanest overall builds, but especially with that cooling, I think that looks great. I mean, because you almost, I guess I'd have to wait for another zoomed out shot. You can't tell it's not rigid. I guess towards the bottom, probably those start to flow a little bit, but I think it looks great. I'll be interested though. So on the rigid, that's got to be a whole different, I mean, even animal, a lot more measuring, getting your angles, making sure they're right. Cause just, especially in such a tight spot, I've never done it before, but it sounds like it would be a big challenge. Is that something though you can do at home with with tools you probably have around the house? Or is there special stuff you need?
So they actually sent over a full tube bending kit as well.
Okay.
I did have to buy a heat gun. So you can just get a heat gun at Home Depot or Lowe's. But the tube bending kit comes with all of the inserts for your tubing, so you can make those nice smooth bends without kinks. It has a tool to get exact bend angles, so 45 degrees. I think 180s on there, 90s. So you could get perfect looking bends. Cleaning your the ends of your tubing is really important. You want to make sure it's nice and smooth, so you're not having any leaks there. But yeah, it's a whole different beast with the hard tubing. It'll be my first hard tubing build, so I'm again a little more anxious for that. But it's going to go into a InWin 925 that Bob just reviewed actually pretty recently, within the last month or so.
Yeah,
got that review up over on the website, as well as a video for it. But we're going to put in two 360 millimeter radiators in this case, so we'll get a little better cooling.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Was 2 rads necessary for this build? Right, I mean, would you probably have seen pretty high thermal? I mean, I guess when you are running it through the GPU and CPU, I guess that's a whole different animal. And a 2070 Super is a really nice card too. Probably runs pretty hot when you're playing Apex.
Pretty cool. Even under load now, is
now for sure. But I mean, you probably need a decent cooling system like this, obviously. So 1 rad probably to cool both of those wouldn't have been enough.
No, that would not have been a wise choice for me. And the 905 in general doesn't have the best cooling properties. There's multiple reasons for that. It looks like it's a really nice looking case, and I'm pretty happy with it still. But the 925 I'm super excited to build in, so that'll be
cool.
Ryan, what do you use for coolant?
So this is Alpha Cool's, I forget their funny name for the coolant. It's not just standard distilled water. It does have some additional additives there for anti-corrosion and things like that. I think in the next build, I'm probably going to go with a coolant from Primo Chill. I haven't decided what color or look I'm going to go with. They have one that kind of has the swirly look to it. I go back and forth on that. I don't want the maintenance that requires. The teardown and cleaning is a lot more cumbersome and a lot more often in order to keep the loop performing well. So,
do they have one with glitter?
I mean, it is. It's kind of like a glittery look. It really is.
Yikes!
It looks really cool.
Yikes! It goes with the Disney ad that was on there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But no, it was a fun build. I'm excited to put together a video on the next one.
That's pretty cool. Bob, what do you give the video? This is kind of Ryan's debut, right?
So Ryan recently got into video editing. What's the piece of software that you use to do that, Ryan?
I use now you're asking me Express.
DaVinci.
Okay. Nice to use for me. Software. I think you can get it free. I think I paid for a little bit of an upgrade with some extra effects and plugins for $10. So
yeah. So Ryan,
passing score. I think I made a post it on the site, so that's got to count for something.
Yeah, no, Ryan got into video editing, and I was really impressed with how everything came out. Because I got all these parts sent to him, and I was just anxiously waiting, and then it just the final product came out, and I was really impressed. It came out really good. So
I did a nice job. Good work on the
Ryan. You were cutting out there just a little bit. What piece of software was it?
Hit Film Express.
Hit Film Express. Okay.
I saw Andrew asking if the radiator is chilling water before it hits the graphics card and CPU. Yes. So it goes through that one radiator before it hits the GPU and CPU, and then out to the other radiator up front.
Wait, is this supposed to cool things? I thought it was just supposed to look cool.
Does that too? Yeah.
Dude,
Fun.
that was the dumbest dad joke I've ever said. Well, that's all right. That's what it is. Well, I think good work, Ryan. We'll remind everyone, head over. We talked about a lot in just head over to thinkcomputers.org and just peruse through, join up or join the mailing list. So you're getting up to date on all the things that they're putting out. It's Bob's job. So they're doing a great job. It's not like me, because I'm like a slacker. Mike and I, we just kind of fake this thing. These guys actually do something over there. So you want to head over. I mean, if you want serious reviews and those kinds of things, head over to thinkcomputers.org and just and peruse there. And then make sure you're making the podcast. If you can't make it live Wednesday nights, you can download it on any podcast app and stay connected. I feel like we cover a lot, and I shouldn't say cover a lot of the same things, because I think it's pretty different, but I think our communities are very similar.
Yeah.
So kind of those enthusiasts. So Bob, Ryan, thanks for coming on tonight. Appreciate you guys. Have a great Christmas.
Yeah, you too.
It's
You as
tough
well.
to, like, as tech guys, like, we've already bought all the stuff we want, right? Right? I mean, look at behind you there, Bob. Like, you don't
Yeah.
need anything more, right? I mean, what do you get? What kind of things do you guys get for Christmas? What that you don't already have?
I don't know. Like my girlfriend was asking me, she's like, "What do you want for Christmas?" And I was like, "I have no clue, because I have everything that I actually want. I have, just like
Yeah.
a nice dinner somewhere, you know, whenever you can go out to eat again in the state of Pennsylvania. You know, yeah, I'm just like, even now I was just thinking about something that I would want. I don't
Yeah.
even
No, I understand. I understand.
I like
Ryan,
a week off work, like.
yeah, some quiet. Yeah,
Yeah.
where I don't have to write reviews. Ryan, what about you? What are you hoping for? What are you hoping Santa brings? Got anything on the list?
Kind of the same way. I got this case, so I'm happy with it. You know, I'd take some snow, but really, I
Okay.
think just some time off of work to
Yeah.
spend some time on the build and improve video editing skills with some of that time off. That's about
Nice.
all I need.
Wieger, what about you? What are you hoping Santa brings?
Well, see, this is a little confusing, because Hannah gave me the theme of the gifts this year. She said ham radio, but I said, I don't like. Do you know what I would need in ham radio? Because she hasn't asked me, and I don't know. So it's probably something really creative and cool, knowing her. So I don't know. That's what she said. It was something ham radio related. So we will see. But same as you guys, I have bought a lot of ham radio gear this year, and I'm kind of, I already have most of the stuff I need. So we'll see. I'm excited to see what it is.
Yeah. Well, it will come and go. For all our listeners, we're going to wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. Fill in the holiday of your choice in there. We hope it's a good time as we head into 2021. It'll be interesting to see. 2020 has been such a dumpster fire of a year. It'll just be, and I'm not expecting the switch to flip on January 1, but I sure hope it does in a lot of ways. What a crazy year it has been. And yet it's been a great year in a lot of ways. There's been a lot of things. There's been a lot of good things. But I mean, there's been a lot of bad things that have happened, no doubt. But there's been sprinkled in there some opportunities and some good things. And I'd ask you, as you guys listen to this, what's been good in your world? What has gone right for you? What has been, I think for us, and I won't ask you guys this. This isn't Thanksgiving dinner, so I'm not going to ask you to say this, but I think for us, we've spent just more family time together, and it's been kind of sweet. We'd kind of gotten out of that habit. Dinner had become kind of a whatever's available, jam it down your throat as fast as you can and move on to the next thing. And we're actually cooking together, and we're eating together and drinking wine together and just we're kind of have a good time. So I don't take any regrets away from this time. And I think we take some good things away from it. Hopefully you have too. And I always just say thanks for listening to us. This will be the last Home Gadget Geeks of the year. We'll be back in January with some more episodes. I think you guys are going to continue through the holiday schedule. So folks can head over thinkcomputers.org and catch the podcast while we're gone. A couple reminders on our way out. One, if you want to join the Discord group, and it's super active. You guys have a Discord group as well, right? It's pretty active, I think. Yeah. So join ours, theaverageguy.tv/Discord, if you go to thinkcomputers.org you can I'm sure there's a link over there somewhere, right? That they can.
Yeah, there is. I think I have thinkcomputers.org/Discord set up, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I think I set it up a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure that's set up to do that. So
Give that a try first, and then if you can't, head over to the site and grab it. Mike and I would love to hear your holiday message, by the way. So if you want to drop us a 30-second holiday message, you can do that. Head over to homegadgetgeeks.com, and in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little microphone. Just click it. A 30-second holiday message. We'll play that when we come back in January. We'd love to hear from you. So get over there and get that done, and we'll play those in the early January shows. You can contact me, send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. You can find me on Twitter @jcollison. Mike is @Wieger Tech. And I think that's all I'm going to pimp tonight. We want to say thanks for coming out. And if you're listening live, thanks for staying around. We're going to do just a tiny bit of post show just because that's what we do. Thanks for coming out tonight. With that, we'll say goodbye.